Hey, this is Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, and this is the Four Horsemen build for March 2022 with the theme of Shiny Rust. If you'd like to participate, here's a list of all our builds. Make sure you send an email into the Four Horsemen Diecast at gmail.com account with pictures of your finished build. So, as you can see, I am starting off with a Hot Wheels AMC Rubble. This is the regular casting. It's got the red rims with the blue and white red paint job. It's got the plastic base. I already took it apart, so that way I didn't have to do that on camera. Pretty basic casting, nothing fancy. And for once in my life, I actually found tires and rims that actually fit. I didn't have to cut anything. I didn't have to shorten anything. I didn't have to, excuse me, narrow the rear end or anything like that. I got these from Treads 164 in a recent purchase, a bunch of different stuff, and these actually fit really well. So I didn't actually have to do anything for a change, and they kind of fit that old school wheel that I was looking for this build, and it actually goes together and doesn't require any cutting or grinding at all. So I was pretty fortunate on that, and that happens very, very rarely, so it worked out really well. So I'm going with a different technique. Now I can totally strip this car and do it the way I've done it before with using some auto air rust effect paints and airbrushing like brown and different shades of brown and rust, and then using a medium, like a chipping medium, and then painting over it and then chipping away to reveal the rust. I like this paint job. I think it's got a really cool nostalgia feel to it. It's reminiscent, obviously, of an original, and I wanted to kind of keep some of that. But at the same time, I wanted to, I want to have that look that it's old. And any old car, usually you would have the potential of having different body panels at some point in its life being replaced. I chose the deck lid and the passenger side door, so I'm sanding those down a little bit more. You can see I used a Scotch-Brite pad initially, and then I'm using some 400 grit sandpaper to kind of scuff it up a little bit more in certain spots. This has become an experimental project for me. Um, I, it's very easy to just do what you've always done, and I don't feel like I've learned. You don't learn as much if you keep doing the same thing. Yes, you get better at it, but other than that, you really don't get. You're not learning anything. So here I'm trying to actually get some spots down to bare metal, and at the same time get a little bit more paint off for the spots that I'm going to fully paint, which would be the passenger door and the rear deck lid. This didn't work quite as well as I thought it would by getting it down to bare metal. It didn't really make that much of a difference. I didn't gain anything by that, so lesson learned there. I have a sanding disc I'm going to use as well. Again, just experimenting. It really made no difference at all. I brought the deck lid down with 400 to get rid of any clear coat that was on there and give a good adhesion surface. And I figured I would also try going down to bare metal on just the door alone, since that was the other thing. I'm painting a solid color, and just to test to see what would, how the paint would adhere. It seemed to adhere the same in both, so in all actuality, I really had no need to sand it down to bare metal. So in the future, I won't do that. But again, it's all testing and learning. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. It's just trying different things. So I'm going to use my Tamiya masking tape and mask off the deck lid and the passenger door. This happens to be the tape that I'm using. If I had something that had some really heavy contours, I would probably use the vinyl Tamiya tape, which is it's white. It's a little thin. It's like a pinstriping tape, I think is what they call it. Works really, really well. You can bend it and all kinds of stuff, and really, you can really form it a lot better on complex curves and stuff like that. But excuse me, There really wasn't any of that here, so this tape was just fine. The biggest thing with either tape is do like I'm doing right there and just really get the edges down with your thumbnail to make sure you've got a solid bond, especially where you're masking, to make sure no paint gets underneath. And it just makes things a little bit cleaner, and it doesn't take anything away from the project time wise. An extra rub with your thumb makes it, you know, takes away that possibility at least, and reduces the risk. So I'll use that to mask off the edges, and I'll use the blue painter's tape to just mask off the rest of it so I don't have to worry about it. Because again, I'm just painting those two spots. I'm going to be using Auto Air colors. It's a red. No, actually not Auto Air colors. A Vallejo Air or something, or I don't even know. I have so many paints, I don't even know what I'm using anymore half the time. I use everything. I'm not, when it comes to this kind of stuff, I don't really have a preference. If I'm doing a fancier paint job, I'll obviously try to use something a little bit better. Like I'll use splash paints for 90% of my projects that are going to have a finished paint job. Never had a problem with those, and they have a pretty large selection of colors. And the most important thing for me is it's a breeze to clean up. It takes me like 30 seconds to clean my gun. So yeah, so this is the Vallejo Air Red. Goes on real easy. Not as easy to clean the gun, but for the most part, it works just fine. So about a year and a half ago, I bought these colored pencils with the hopes of really fine-tuning my rust game, and I never used them. So I figured I'd give it a shot because, again, this is an experimental thing. I just picked 3 brownish rust colors, trying light first and trying dark. This worked okay. I've seen there's people on Instagram, God forgive me, I forget his name. Um, uh, he does amazing work just with colored pencils. So I think the technique will work. My technique doesn't work. I don't have the finesse or the time or the patience to do it probably as good as I should. And this being my first time, I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm sure if I did it casting after casting, I'd get the hang of it. But overall, from a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give these probably a 5. They worked okay, but not something I would be happy with the finished product the way I did it. Again, with practice, I think you make them work really, really well. I'll even go so far as I'm using my pinky to kind of blend a little bit. There's a blending tool I'll use. I'm trying to hit all the spots that would have surface rust. So the theme is shiny rust. And there's no such thing. There's shiny patina, which is a degree of rust. But to me, being a New England, rust is, you can poke your finger through it, and it's not fun at all. Most of our projects are pretty bad unless we get them from down south, which I try to do when I can. But again, I don't want a scaly looking rust. I'm more looking for a patina effect that I can clear coat over to get the end result of the theme. So the colored pencils work good for that purpose, and it's only one of 3 things I'm going to do to achieve a rust effect. And again, in the end, I airbrush some rust on, and I could have probably got by with just doing that step. But this gives it a little bit of depth, so overall, at the end result, you'll see at the end, I'm happy with it. Actually very pleased with it. But how much of the pencil really added to that, I'm not 100% sure, but you could be the judge of that. Overall, like I said, it's okay. You just have to really work on your technique. If you're going to work with this, I suggest, grabbing a bunch of cars you don't care about and just practicing. And I think, a good solid day of practicing off and on, I think you'd be able to get a good feel for where to add rust, how to add rust, what layers to do it, when to blend, when not to blend, so on and so forth. Here I'm just kind of adding color just to see if I blend it, how it will look. Excuse me, allergy season's killing me right now. So You know, again, this is all personal preference. Some guys are going to strip the car completely, which I've done in the past, and with really good success. And it gives it a nice look. There's another guy on Instagram, 22 Ave Customs. He's got this down pat. He's explained to me how he does it. I still can't do it. So, hats off to those guys. I just don't have the I don't have the skill set to be able to do that. So the next step that I figured I would add, when you guys have seen me do this before, if you watch my videos, is Rise of Rust. This is a textured paint, and you dry brush it on. And usually you would put it over something, another textured paint like Typhus Corrosion, and it really works for a scaly rust effect. But since I don't want the scaly aspect of it, I'm trying to just dry brush it very faintly, because if you go too heavy, it looks too orange. But the orange itself is nice because it gives it a good contrast, because no rust is any solid color. It's always different stages of rust, even patina. So being able to dry brush really makes a big difference on adding something that kind of draws your eye and makes it look almost authentic. So I'm hitting spots that normally would rust, you know, your rockers, your rear fender wells, any kind of flat surface that's facing the sun, anything like that, I'm kind of focusing in on as far as where I'm applying rust. But generally, this is kind of up to the person who's customizing. I mean, obviously, you can add rust wherever you want on any car, you know, unless it's a fiberglass based car or supposed to be a fiberglass, like a Vet, you wouldn't do this. But you know, you do what you want, and there's no wrong way to do it, and just have fun doing it. And the great part about this kind of a build is if you screw it up, you could just keep going and add more stuff to it, or you know, there's no limits. So you know, really, if you decide to go with like a dry brush effect, really just, you know, go nuts, have fun. You, like I said, don't put it on too heavy. You're gonna want to really make sure you're kind of dabbing, which is more what I'm doing, because the orange is orange it'll dry lighter, but when you're putting it on, it'll scare the crap out of you, because it's like, oh my god, I put it on, it looks like way too bright. But still, you can see I'm rubbing it off with my finger a little bit and taking some of the sharpness away. So you know, don't be afraid to go back over things multiple times lightly. That way you can build it up how you like it. So I end up using the Auto Air, or the Vallejo Air Colors Rust Effects palette. I'm using like a very light orange, and I'm using a primer, which is, it's a multi-step thing, and I use it through my airbrush, and it actually, I really really like the way this came out. I put the dark on first, and then I used the light, and just very very faint. Turn my airbrush way down, and I'm really happy. I didn't mask anything off. I just kind of went over it. Now it's clear coat time with my Automotive 2K clear. I put 5 coats of clear on it to get that shiny rust effect. And because that was the main focus of the build, I really didn't put a lot of focus on other things. I'm doing, you know, headlights, the grill and everything was all black, so I wanted to put some chrome molding around it like it would normally have, using different thickness Moltov pens, which reminds me I need new ones, but for the most part these work really well. I've been using them for years. No horror stories, very good success. Wish I had something bad to say, but I don't. They work really well. So I'll do the detail painting like that. I'll do detail painting on the marker lights, rear tail lights. I have to re-put the door handles back on because I sanded them off when I was scuffing up everything, because they were only painted on to begin with. So other than that, I really didn't do much. I think I blacked out the exhaust tips where the exhaust would come out. Again, you can see I'm using a pen, a fine pen. You can get it like Michael's or any Hobby Lobby. They have all those fine tip micro pens. You can use a Sharpie as well. They all work, or you can paint it. For the most part, having a decent arsenal of different things to try helps. You know, just in the taillights alone, you can use paint. You can use the I think Tamiya has almost a fluorescent paint or a transparent red paint. There you can see I really soaked the shit out of it with clear coat, so worked really well. I've had great success with this automotive primer. I've put clear coat. I've put it over everything. Splash paints. I've primed and then just clear coated because I was too lazy to paint something a solid color. Um, this has the stock paint, the Vallejo rust, and the Vallejo red cleared over it. No bubbling, no issues whatsoever. Um, so if I stumble across a problem, I'll let you guys know. But so far, so good. For about 2.5 years of using this, I've yet to have a problem with it. And it lays down super nice. And you can put it on thick, and it doesn't run. So, or at least I haven't been able to make it run. But overall, you kind of see what we got here. I highly encourage everybody to check out not only our Four Horsemen builds with the special guest this month. Each month we're doing somebody different. But also everybody who participates in the Four Horsemen builds. Plus, check out Paul does a recap video at the end of a couple days after. If everybody sends in their pictures, he'll put a nice recap video together on the Four Horsemen Diecast channel, which I mentioned earlier. And overall, I think you guys will be pleased. We get some great submissions, and I love seeing what everybody comes up with for different things, and everybody's take on this build or any build that we do for the Four Horsemen really is amazing because that's what I like about Three Blind Mice and our builds. Same casting, same theme. Everybody has a different take on it, and I think it's really cool to watch what everybody can do with the same thing with their own imagination, and I think that's awesome. So I look forward to watching everybody else's videos, and I highly encourage you to do the same. So here you can just see I'm just doing the marker lights again, which got sanded off when I used actually the Scotch-Brite. They were just painted on, so for the most part, again, just using whatever I happen to have handy for paint, which in this case, was the air color. So overall, this was a fun build. I had a blast. I was under a time constraint because my time management sucks lately. Between work and my other hobbies, I haven't had much time. So this was a fun build. Check out the rest of this video and my glamour shots, if that's what you want to call them, at the end. I look forward to seeing everybody's builds, getting your feedback, and I will catch you on the next one.